This is the Galaxy S7 Edge and it costs £639 in the UK, so it's one of the most expensive phones on the market. But is it worth the £70 extra compared to the normal S7? So taking a look at the design of the S7, we've got the S6 here, and as you can see things look pretty similar. Obviously the Edge is a slightly bigger version, but we've still got this combination of glass and metal. The phone is actually a little bit thicker than before, so it's 7.8mm by our measurements. But that's a small price to pay considering Samsung has listened to fans and given them exactly what they've been asking for. So on the top here we've got the SD card slot, which also has the SIM card in there, so expandable storage is back. So that's one of the major things that's come with the S7. The device is also waterproof to a rating of IP68, so that's number 2 on the list. And although the battery isn't removable still, there is a much bigger battery inside, which is one of the reasons why we don't mind it being a little bit thicker than before. So battery life is better, and we'll get onto that later. Although you can hardly blame Samsung for keeping the design basically the same since the S6 was so good looking, there are a couple of drawbacks. The glass rear panel gets really grubby with fingerprints, and overall the phone is a little bit slippery. Moving on to hardware, and we can see that Samsung has gone for a 5.5-inch screen, so there's only one size of the Edge, so this is now the larger option out of the two, and the firm has also stuck with a Quad HD resolution instead of jumping to 4K like Sony has done, and the screen is absolutely gorgeous as it was before with Samsung's preferred Super AMOLED technology. It's nice and crisp at 534 pixels per inch, and we've really got no complaints. There's a new feature, which is that the screen is always on, so if I lock the phone you'll see in a second that it comes up with some information. This is one of the features being touted of the S7, but we're a little bit disappointed. There's not actually that much control over what the screen displays. It jumps around the screen every now and then, presumably to save pixels getting burnt out. The always on screen will also give you notifications, but it's pretty limited with only calls and text messages. Although we're expecting the Snapdragon 820 processor in the UK edition of the S7, we've actually got the Exynos 8890, so that's an octa-core processor, and inside there's 4GB of RAM, which is very healthy for a phone in 2016. And the S7 Edge set a number of benchmark records in our test lab. Although the S6 was available in 3 different capacities, Samsung has decided that the S7 is only going to be available in 32GB. Presumably this is because of the SD card slot, which can take up to 200GB cards. Sadly, Samsung's chosen not to support the adaptive storage feature of Android Marshmallow, but you can carry on using it like a regular SD card. As you'd expect, there's still a fingerprint scanner hidden in the home button, which you can use to unlock the phone. It doesn't always work, but it's pretty good. Samsung has kept the heart rate monitor, which sits on the back next to the camera. But unfortunately the IR blaster is now gone from the top, so you can't use the S7 Edge or the S7 to control devices around your home like your TV. Moving on to the camera, which is one of the main features of any phone, and Samsung has actually dropped the megapixels from 16 down to 12. But thanks to camera tech such as dual pixel technology, larger pixels, optical image stabilization and an aperture of f1.7, Samsung says it lets in 95% more light than it did before. It can also shoot 4K video and slow motion at 240 frames per second. At the front we've got a 5 megapixel camera with the same 1.7 aperture, and in general we've been really impressed with both cameras, and the S7 Edge is one of the best on the market for photography. As we mentioned earlier, the phone is a little bit thicker than before to fit in a bigger battery, and at 3600 mAh it's really impressive in terms of battery life, setting a record of 11 hours and 25 minutes in our benchmark test. It also includes wireless charging, so you can top it up nice and easily. Although Samsung hasn't gone for USB-C, which is the newer reversible port, it's stuck with the old micro USB port. It told us that it just simply doesn't see the value in the new port just yet. Although the Snapdragon 820 model doesn't come with Quick Charge 3, the Exynos model comes with Samsung's own adaptive fast charging, and we found that we could charge the S7 Edge from 0 to 100% in just 98 minutes, which isn't too bad. Moving on to software, and the S7 Edge, as you'd expect, comes with Android Marshmallow 6.0, the latest version of Google's operating system for mobiles. Of course, it still comes with Samsung's own TouchWiz interface. So we've got Samsung's own notification bar with its quick settings at the top. Hit the arrow and you've got access to a whole lot more. Recent apps is the usual Google Cards style carousel. Samsung has moved away from Flipboard and added an update news aggregator. So this is where you get mostly news articles and items that over time it thinks you're interested in. One of the key features of the S7 Edge is the game launcher, which takes advantage of the Vulkan API. This groups all your games together in one place, makes sure that you don't get alerts while you're playing, and also provides you with some game tools. So when you do start playing, you can do things like change the resolution, the frame rate, or even record your screen while you play. That's pretty handy for all the gamers out there, but what you probably want to know is what the Edge screen does these days in this iteration. So as you can see, we've still got the handle along the side of the Edge. You can put this on either side of the phone depending on whether you're right or left-handed. Swipe in from that handle and then you've got your Edge panels. One of the main new ones is this one called Task Edge, which is where you can set up shortcuts to do different tasks on the phone, such as take a selfie. You can add more depending on what you're interested in doing with a selection of apps, but you can't actually create your own from scratch, which is a bit of a shame. You can do a swipe up and down to get your notifications. At night time you can automatically set it to be used as a clock. Should you leave your phone like that, the Edge screen will now light up on both sides with the color-coded system. So if you're getting a call or a text from one of the people in your People Edge, the Edge will then light up that color. Although it's not perfect, the Samsung Galaxy S7 Edge feels like a much more refined and honed smartphone than before. It's got some of the best design and hardware features on the market, and we feel it's worth the £70 extra compared to the regular S7. We award 4.5 stars, and our recommended award.